Welcome to the E-Chaplain's universe. We will be with you in 30 seconds. Welcome, everyone. This is the January 6th, 2022 already in the first live of the year, and it's an honor and privilege for me to greet Paul Toner. Hi, Paul.
Hello, Silvio. How are you?
Good, and you?
Very well, very well. A little rushed. Went to stop at Sobeys on the way home. Bad idea before a storm, but other than that, good.
Good. So before we present you, Paul, just want to remind people who are viewing, who follow the E-Chaplain, this is at the very beginning stages of the E-Chaplain, and I try to invite people who have their faith in their heart and also who have different talents. But the main purpose of the E-Chaplain is to listen to people. So for those who are interested in being listened to or looking for spiritual direction, feel free to contact me. And remember that the E-Chaplain is here to invite you to discover or rediscover the dignity of your existence in your existence through simplicity towards wonder, because that's where we want to bring you. But anyways, besides the point, tonight I'm here to present you Paul Toner, who grew up in Riverview in a musical family, so that's why you can see him with his guitar. And he moved in Newfoundland, then moved back to New Brunswick, and thank goodness, or thank God, because that's when I knew Paul several years ago, and I've worked with Paul on different projects along in the last 20 years or so, and I've known him for many years, and a couple years ago, I noticed that Paul was on his Facebook, and he posted a song, but not from somebody else, but himself. So I was delighted to see that and to notice that talent. And tonight, that's what we want to show you is his talent. However, before we do that, and by the way, tonight's live is called Embraced by Light. You're going to find out why at the end of the live, so please stay tuned with us. So, and when I heard, right before Christmas, I heard Paul singing in this song on YouTube, and he directed me to the YouTube, and I listened to it, and I said, wow, I have to present this man to the E-Chaplain community because it's just a brilliant song. So, Paul, before we get into the nitty gritty of the subject, how were your holidays, anyways?
They were good. I have two girls, one 19, one 23, and they were home during Christmas. We stayed safe. Stayed outside. I didn't overeat too much. I certainly It was hard getting up again for work hours this week, but we were very fortunate. We were safe and healthy and had really good holidays. So yeah, thank you.
Good, no problem. Speaking of holidays, I know that for ourselves we had a family tradition. We do and we call it les pâtés. It's sort of like a calzone with meat with small chives or green onions with salted green onions, and we mix that into the meat, and then we fold the bread dough as a calzone, and we eat that usually on Christmas Eve. But we decided to break the family tradition and eat it whenever during the holidays. So, how about you, Paul? Do you have any family traditions that you carry along the decades, or?
Yes, and the decades is a good way to describe it sometimes. I mean, my background when I worked in faith communities was in liturgy and stuff, so I was the keeper of traditions.
You're right.
I was we're in Advent and we're not yet putting up Christmas trees and all of that, but That's changed a lot in the last few years, especially with my daughters. I mean, even our eating traditions, with one that's vegan and other things. So we've adopted some newer traditions. One of them is on Christmas Eve day, we go for a hike. And that helps everybody's mental health. No
Oh, what a great idea.
Wonderful way to start it. And then food-wise, we do a combined charcuterie board on Christmas Eve. Some of it meat,
What's that?
vegetables and stuff. So it's a beautiful display of just crackers and like I say, for those carnivorous ones, we're eating the meats and stuff, but then other vegan delights and all of that. So food is still at the center of a lot of our traditions for sure. So yeah, I would say, and we really put an emphasis more and more as our daughters are older on doing things together. That's the better experience, lowering expectations around the gift giving and stuff, and more around let's do some stuff together. So yeah, I've let go. They were shocked. I had the Christmas tree up, lights on 2 weeks in advance. Years ago, I would never have done that, right? We used to decorate our tree in my family Christmas Eve. So
Wow.
so I have found it hard originally when people would have their tree up November 1st, but open to it all now. So
That's good. That's good. So it's nice to know of some of your traditions you celebrate or you carry along the decades with your family. But for the viewers, I mean, uh, I've been delighted to know you for many years, and we've worked on different projects. But I'd like you to tell our viewers tonight who will be listening to us either live or on replay, uh, who is Paul Toner? Who is that man?
who the man? We got a little Alexa thing, and when we ask Alexa, who's the man, it answers back, "You are." I think that's the voice that we connected to it. That's a good question because years ago, and I mean like 25 years ago, I was living in Newfoundland and I worked in a faith community, and I had a role as a pastoral worker. And when I left that job, my identity was so tied up with it that was the question I asked, because I was known as Paul Toner, who worked at such and such St. Teresa's Parish.
Right?
And so now, since then, I've identified myself differently. First of all, I'm a creature of the earth, right? I'm one of just fellow, humans trying to live on this fragile, vulnerable, our growing awareness of how vulnerable it is place. So first, I'm a creature of the earth. I would say that in my heart, I'm probably secondly still a follower of the way. So, my understanding of Christianity certainly has expanded and changed, but in terms of my traditions and things that root me, after that, I would say I have a husband, I'm a partner,
Hmm.
and I'm a father. And then Paul Toner right now, I'm in my 15th year, is also, he works with United Way. So,
Oh, great.
and it aligns well with who I am, but that's probably how I would describe it, of who I am, right?
Uh-huh. So what do you do for a living at United Way?
So I'm associate director and director of community development. So we're all responsible for making sure we raise the funds that supports, organizations that work in the community. But my work is really in community development.
Hmm.
A piece of it is really around convening and bringing people together, taking the privilege of the relationships that we have with corporations and partners and the nonprofit sector and individuals and government, and I say privilege, because some people they're so rushed that there's no opportunity to put their head up and look around. But I get to do my high extrovert and go around and say, "What do you do? What are you doing?" And we have the opportunity often to bring people together to try and achieve
Hmm.
outcomes, not just in the individual lives of people, but to try and change things at a community level, at a population level, and especially around moving people from poverty to possibility and helping children and youth be all they can be. That would be our two primary areas. But so yeah, that's the work that I do and that I love. Again, it's a good match for a high extrovert. I'm pleased to say that with the pandemic, I think I've been able to survive because we never stopped going to the office, even when there was only 3, 4 of us in the entire building. Uh,
Hmm.
I could have survived as well. Certainly, I would not have thrived if I was having to work at home all this time. So, and again, I recognize that's a privilege on our part. But so yeah, so we do spend a lot of our time down in the mud, we say, because it's fine to say people work together, but when you have different mandates, different approaches, different values, different things, that's a bit of an art of seeing
Yes.
how do we actually work together. So, and I like that work, and it's an honor. So.
Good, good, good. So you've been there for 15 years now, and prior to that, you said you worked in the field of faith. And
Right.
speaking of faith, so I've worked with you and collaborated with you in the two positions you carried, and I remember one project that we worked with the 40 asset development building blocks,
Right.
and one of those building blocks is faith, but uh, what is your faith and your spiritual background for those who are
Right.
listening to us tonight or
Right.
today?
I always go, that's a good question. I grew up in a Roman Catholic tradition.
Uh-huh.
What I'm grateful for in that tradition was the sense of, or at least in how I experienced it, of the focus on the common good. You know, the social justice side. The bishops in the 60s in the Latin American countries were the ones that coined the phrase of the preferential option of the poor, trying to see things not from our own socioeconomic class, but from the most vulnerable. Um,
Hmm.
Also, I would say of the rich symbolism, certainly in all the bells and whistles and smells and stuff. Sometimes in the Catholic tradition, and the candles and that. I think that's what drew me into the last role prior to United Way. I worked in liturgy, and I was trying to help people celebrate well in all those, from great celebrations to how a funeral celebration accompanies someone. So I'm grateful for those. I'm right now. We are my wife and I are part of the St. Paul's United Church, uh,
Okay.
and very privileged there because we've had the two pastors. One again who's very focused on social justice. Has been a human rights observer in Palestine, and then we had another one who's had a young family and is able to talk about the experiences of what it's like trying to respond to the challenges in our life. So I would say that's the community that I'm connected to, and that's important for me to be connected to a community, to be committed to one.
Mm-hmm.
But I would dare say, I was talking to you before about it's certainly I find that for myself, the Christian narrative in 2022, not 2021 now,
Hmm.
is just not large enough for me to tell the whole story. So it's
Hmm.
an important one for me. But there's so many other traditions and paths and ones who are non-denominational and non-confessional as well. We're in a cosmic time of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So I would dare say, part of my spirituality is even connected more and more with how we understand energy. I am an artsy fartsy. All my degrees are in that. But I love when they explain it in a layman's terms to me to quantum physics, because it's science that is artistic to trying to describe, and it seems to. So there, I think of different writers and ones who incorporate that into the spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So though I would say, though, that's where am more and more. I think the other one, especially, I'm sure all of us are being invited to look at more closely, is the richness in our First Nations traditions. Uh,
Yes.
we're well aware of the harm and damage and stuff we have done as a community, and the consequences of that generationally. But we're also aware of the profound richness of the traditions of an understanding of our place in the world and in nature and in stewardship, and of wisdom and of sharing the lessons that they have. And so, not wanting to culturally appropriate that,
Mm-hmm.
but certainly it's something that drawn more and more to being led by and informed by what these wonderful diverse traditions within the First Nations in terms of spirituality, especially around nature. I think we're all craving to be outside.
Mm. Yes, of course. Before we continue, I just want to say hello to the people who are watching us on live and are or on replay. And if you have any questions for Paul or myself, please feel free to write in the comments section. And also, I want to I see that Monique and Tina are with us and other people. So welcome to you, ladies. And again, going on related to faith, I would say, how do you celebrate? Uh, how do you celebrate and express that faith? The reason why I asked that question is because I was talking to a lady in consultation the other morning, and I explained her the difference between practicing and celebrating your faith. A lot of people say, "Well, I don't practice my faith. I don't go to mass. I don't go to church. I don't go to the synagogue. I don't go to the mosque." Okay, so what else do you do in your life? What kind of work do you do? What kind of volunteering do you do? How do you treat others? So when you practice your faith or your religion, your spirituality, it's one thing. So that's what you do. When you go to the place of worship, when you go to worship in your own home, in your own heart, that's how you celebrate and express your faith. So I believe a lot of people are practitioners, practice their faith, even or practice their values related to faith, even without knowing it.
Right.
And so expressing your faith and celebrating your faith, sorry, is really different. So Paul, how do you celebrate and express your faith?
You're getting me at a good time or a challenging time because, as I say, that's
Mm.
evolving. I mean, first and foremost, we're attached to a faith community, but we haven't been inside the doors for almost 2 years because they have been
Mm.
wonderful with respecting the protocols and guidelines. And even when they've had in person, the limitations of it is we've really privileged having those who need to be there, and some of our senior members of the community in that. So, I would say in terms of practicing it, watching it online, again, we were privileged. We had two pastors, and the piece we love the most online is the first things they would do is they do this banter back and forth all during this pandemic of saying, how was your week? And I think they were speaking for all of us in that discussion. It's like, oh, well, up and down and stuff. So I would say the connection to a community is one of the ways I still practice it and still
Hmm.
celebrate it. But when you say celebrate, it's one of the things that I would borrow from the Catholic tradition is their understanding of sacraments and sacramentals. And
Hmm.
essentially it's, I remember when I had to teach it to kids and stuff, we would say sacraments are those are just ways of us ritualizing something that's already happened. You know,
Mm.
one of the Catholic traditions is one of the few that that has that confessional or reconciliation ritual. And I remember saying to my own children, because we had to teach it to them, and I said, look, as soon as you ask forgiveness from however you understand, your God or a higher power, it's happened. But as humans, we need to ritualize things in order for us to believe it and to experience it and for it to become real for us. And
Hmm.
that's sacramental. There's magic and wonder happening around us constantly. It's constantly available to us. But our ability to appreciate, to enjoy it, I think as humans, we need practices and rituals and stuff for us to believe it. My understanding
Mm.
of the benevolent universe and higher power is that it's good. Richard Rohr says that that's the choice: is
Oh,
do
yes.
uh, a benevolent universe or the old Romans gods ones of practically not even indifferent but almost hostile to us. And I honestly believe that the universe is benevolent and that is always available to us. But the little acts and things that we do either individually or communally sometimes are the things I think that allow us to believe it, and in believing it, it becomes more real. Uh,
Mm.
so that's so. Strange enough, I would say certainly one of the ways I celebrate it is outdoors. Like nature. I had a friend asked, like, well, higher power, what do you mean? I said, look, I understand that somebody who doesn't believe in a higher power looks at all these different denominations and hears us as if we're saying, well, my unicorn is pink, and the other one saying my unicorn is orange, and we're debating it. I, but I said to him, it's as simple as when we go walking in the fall, my wife and I,
Hmm.
sheer delight and joy that we get from colors of the leaves. I go, there's something in there. Like that doesn't just seem to be an evolutionary thing. There's no other purpose to it other than joy and wonder. So to me,
Mm.
that's something in me. So nature's one. And I will tell you the other one. And, I say often that the high extrovert, It's been hard. One of the songs I wrote during the pandemic is called Stuck. And one of the lines in it that I say in it is, to close the distance with a warm embrace and drink and dance in a crowded place. I crave that. I crave that sense of people being together and music and singing and just being with one another. That to me is one of the ways I celebrate faith. That's when,
Hmm.
so, and that's not the experience for all people who are maybe more introverted. And it doesn't mean they don't enjoy it, but it can take energy from them. It gives me energy. It does it. So I would honestly say that that's one of the ways I celebrate it. And it's one of the ways that's been more challenging because there hasn't been as many opportunities to do it uh,
Hmm.
during this time, And I think I'm not alone in craving that. It's not just to get out and do that; it's to be with people in that way, to not feel restricted in our joy and of just being with one another. So yeah,
And uh, thank you for sharing that with us, Paul. And which leads us into my next question for you. So, what led you to write songs and present them to an audience?
right. Well, even though I was shy growing up, a high extrovert is also craving the spotlight. Like I think of that the special when Linus goes out and he goes spotlight. You know, uh, I would claim like, no, no, I don't. But that was just shyness and fear of rejection and all of that. But certainly the wanting to be, sharing it with people is any artist craving. You want someone to hear it. There's something that you have captured, and that can be from a painter, from somebody who works with different medias, all that. You're working with your creativity, and when you have something that wasn't fully there in a concrete way that now is, there's a great desire. I feel a great desire to share that, especially when there's ones that I feel really proud of, or I think it maybe has something that can be relevant or helpful for others. What
Hmm.
I would say that's changed over the last few years is a lot of my songs were very personal. The one that I'll be sharing tonight was from an experience in a faith sharing group and of us walking together and accompanying one another. And that in recent years, I've kind of got a little niche forming here in the Fundy region. Because
Okay.
I was in Newfoundland, the place of storytelling and that. And I mean, if you spilled a drink, they created a musical around it. Uh, and was that in our region, there didn't seem to be the same songs and things written about some of the great tales and stories in our region. And it began with one, Captain Kool. So the
Okay.
first male sea captain in North America comes from Alma. And I was thinking, I grew up in Riverview in Albert County, had never heard of her. And I'm thinking, one, how had I never heard of her? Two, how come there's not like songs and pubs that they're singing about, like even the name Captain Kool, like it's just cool. So that started me on a journey so that these songs, instead of just being about ones of my own, began to be looking at the stories of tales or individuals in our region, and spending time trying to capture that and working with partners who have a vision of capturing that and describing that more in our region. So like Friends of Fundy organization, the partners with the Fundy Park, they have that vision of how do we tell our story in this region, and because it's and be more supportive of one another, and that
Hmm.
the Saxby Gale Storm in 1869. It was a devastating one. It's long enough ago that you can write, a song about it, people dying and stuff. That's the Irish kind of tradition of songs, right? It's like
Hmm.
went down, and we sing happily about it. Um, and then continuing to look at those kinds of stories. So of late, my focus has been on unearthing the stories that are from the region that I haven't appreciated. Uh, and and a lot of the stories are ones of people who have come here as well. So we have
Hmm.
our first settlers, but the First Nations, but where the rest of us are settlers. So even though the Steves may have been in Albert County now for and had their big reunion, but the Acadians were actually the ones that created the farmland first that everybody benefited from, and before them there was the First Nations, and so people have been coming to this region. That's part of the tradition. And so when we tell songs about this region, newcomers can relate to it as well. So it's been a real, that's like I said, the evolution, I would say, in some of my more recent songwriting. But the one tonight is one that I will be sharing is more from a personal one of just I guess it's a ritualizing, it's sacramentalizing people's stories. Their stories are sacred, and even their painful ones are still full of wonder, and we should be appreciative of. And if my contribution is being able to capture that in music and in song, then and to treat that, their stories with that dignity, and that, the privilege it is that they share that, then that's a gift that I want to share with others as well, right?
Good. So now the moment we've
Hey,
he's got
water,
something to water. Okay, just checking.
just water.
Those Irish. Maybe you have something else in there. uh, so the moment we've been waiting for tonight, and I've heard it several times since I heard it the first time, which was a couple weeks ago. Well, maybe 3 weeks ago, and so remember, for those who are just joining us now, want to tell you that tonight's live title is Embraced by Light. So you're going to understand why when you listen to this song, which is called Embraced by Light. So, Paul, go ahead.
Right. And just a preamble to this one,
Yes, of
and
course.
why it's night, because this is January 6th, so Old Christmas Day, or in some Orthodox tradition, just the beginning. But this song is two aspects to it. The personal part, as I had mentioned, is part of a faith-sharing group of individuals where we were sharing our lives together and our struggles. And some of the struggles included, one of the ones in our group was a mother who's was pregnant, and her husband died while she was in bed before the baby had even come and stuff. And part of our sharing was her experience of, why and struggling with. And I remember I always called her the woman at the well in their Christian tradition that would argue with Jesus and stuff. But another one was a great family who they were mourning the passing of their wisdom person in their lives. And so it takes from the Epiphany tradition of the wise men. Sometimes some people think that's an oxymoron, but the searchers, the seekers, and it's appropriate now because part of it is the reflection after people who follow something within the Christmas tradition, and it's the reflection on it afterwards. James Taylor has a song called "Home by Another Way," and it's saying after having that experience, they went home by another way. So this one is about, it's called Embraced by the Light, and it's the notion that whether you follow the winter solstice or the Yule or Christian traditions or any during this time, in the Northern Hemisphere, the connection to light and darkness is profound. Mm-hmm. And so even though darkness can be good as well, it's not a time for us to run for the darkness. It's the time that we can, with a defiant hope, look at the darkness in our lives with the expectation that we will be embraced by the light. So it's a longer ramble, but here we go. Here we try this. Like embers in the ashes, the flowers in the sand, how that star shone bright on a winter's night, the cold and lonely land. And they carried buried treasures that their gifts would never show, in fragile scenes of hopes and dreams, and the whisper of a promise long ago. They were embraced by the light, warmed with delight. When the baby smiled 1,000 years, he restored their fading sight, and they were washed free of fear, and their prayers were answered here. They were held in golden arms of love. They were embraced by the light. So the Spirit fills a family, and they're faithful to the call, and the gifts they share of love and care magic to us all. But now they mourn the passing of the one who helped them grow, and the joy they share is a little less. Still they hope for new life beneath the winter snow. I believe they'll be embraced by the light, warm with delight. When the baby smiles 1,000 years, he'll restore their fading sight, and they'll be washed free of fear, and their prayers are answered here. They'll be held in golden arms above. They'll be embraced by the light. And our prayers will break the heavens like shards of brilliant light. And the brightest is a mother's cry for her children in the night. And in our advent longing, in the pain of broken lives, the seed of hope he planted will now open wide our eyes, and will be embraced by the light, warm with delight. When the baby smiles 1,000 years, he'll restore our fading sight, and we'll be washed free of fear, and our prayers are answered here. We'll be held in golden arms above. We'll be embraced by the light. We'll be embraced by the light.
Wow. I still love it.
Well, and if you want to hear a version without a mistake that I made in it, you can go to the YouTube one. It's always when you screw up your own words, but you wouldn't have known that because if you haven't watched it. But you go to the YouTube version, and accompanied by the amazing Tim Isaac cellist, you'll get an even more professional version.
Yes, and I'll put that in the comments afterwards, and you'll be able to the viewers will be able to see the professional version, in studio version with Tim Isaac, the famous musician.
Right.
And I want to thank you so much for doing that, doing us a gift for in the context of the Epiphany today. And also, I wanted to show people how talented you are. And whenever you see Paul Toner, yes, don't be shy tonight, Paul. And so Paul has been a man of faith, and every time I've talked to him, he's a man of wisdom. If there could be three of them, he'd be the three wise men. So, anyways, and he embraced the light, and every project he does, he embraces that light. And I want to thank God for sending us in our region. Instead of Newfoundland, you sent him back here in southeastern New Brunswick to serve the people of southeastern New Brunswick, to United Way of Greater Moncton and southeastern New Brunswick, and now as a songwriter and singer. So I want to thank you very much for that, Paul. And again, I want to thank to everybody who is with us tonight. So I've noticed that we had so Monique, Tina, and Jeanette, and Alice, and Nicole. They say thank you, and also they wish to meet you in live someday. So I'll make sure to copy that link whenever I see that on your Facebook page. And before we end our conversation tonight, Paul, what would be your message of hope and wonder for our viewers?
The peace the reason I said that there's a social justice part that stays with me from some of the traditions I've been a part of is I honestly believe the illusion is that we are not interconnected and interdependent. That's the illusion. We are completely connected and independent. But the consequence, if we live as if we're not, is real. So
Hmm.
it's really to just embrace the reality that we are completely interdependent and interconnected. Because if we live that, then it becomes real. So that to me is that there's the opportunity, is the invitation is there for us to do that. So, and I just want to thank you for the privilege and opportunity to do this as well, Sylvia. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes, yes. And Tina says, three wise men in one. Thank you, Paul, to have shared your talent, your faith, and your joy. So thank you for that comment, Tina. And also, I just want to remind people that I will be I study human resources on a full time basis. So I'll be concentrating on that. I'll be doing lives maybe every uh, week to 2 weeks, maybe three. So, but keep on following us on YouTube or on Facebook. And if you want to follow, if you have any prayer requests, no matter which faith background you belong to, the Aumônier du Web, Groupe de Prière Aumônier du Web E-Chaplain Prayer Group is there for you. And if ever you need to speak to somebody who you know will listen and help you go a little further through simplicity towards wonder and rediscover that dignity within you, well, I'm here for you. Uh, my time space is rare. However, I make it a point to be present when I am present with the people I journey with and in consultation. And for those who didn't know, I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I'm a member of the Canadian Association of Spiritual Care. So through that, I have permission to accompany people and journey with them. So feel free to visit us on YouTube and on Facebook and communicate with us. Either myself or Joy's team, who is also part of the E-Chaplain team. So, again, thank you so much, Paul Toner, to take this time and share who you are and how you live your faith. It's been a pleasure for me to have you here in the E-Chaplain universe. And on this Epiphany Day, I couldn't have a more brilliant person to accompany me in this live tonight. So I want to thank you very much and stay safe in this COVID Omicron thing, world pandemic. And we also want to say hello to Pauline Cormier Bourgeois, who you might know, and who says yes and yes and bonne fête des rois. And on that note, we'll say goodbye to the people who follow us, and I'll be putting the link so they can hear the magnificent studio version of "Embrace My Life," and also that good Jingle Bells and other "Mary Did You Know" on that YouTube channel. I'll be doing that in a few minutes.
Wonderful.
So thank you very much, and we want to wish you continue Merry Christmas in this Christmas octave, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
I know.